It is 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, California time. So you know what time it is. Time for another episode of Erik Wait Live. So we are wrapping up the Highland Peated Single Malt Scotch Whiskey semester, or Peated Highland Single Malt Scotch Whiskey semester, however you want to go with that one. Been an awesome experience. It didn't exactly go the way I sort of expected it would. You know, I had some preconceived ideas as what I thought Highland Single Malt Scotch, Peated Highland Single Malt Scotch Whiskies would be all about. But, you know, as we go in whiskey per whiskey, you know, my perceptions and thoughts and everything else, and then doing more reading and contacting distilleries, it's been a really great learning experience. And I don't know any whiskey tuber who has done anything like this. Yes, like Scott and Bart of Scotch Systemies, they've done, you know, peat blowouts or whatever they come down competitions, but not just a long focus on Peated Highland Single Malt Scotch Whiskies. So before I get rolling and what I want to go over tonight, I'm going to reveal the top 5 out of the, I think it was like 23 different whiskeys that I reviewed. I have a top 5 list. Going to get into that a little bit later. I actually have number 5 in my glass right now. But before I do, I want to do sort of a summary of things that I learned. If you have learned some other things along the way, along with me, let me know. But before I do, let me say hello to everyone we got. We got 16 people joining us. And all right, Thomas Buck, thank you very much for tuning in. Michael C. 2019. Aaron Hardiman, thank you very much for tuning in. Mike Bennett, thank you for tuning in. Floydian 06, thanks for tuning in. And Antel Broke, thank you very much for tuning in. I don't think I've seen you in here before. Mark Tudor, thanks for tuning in. Whiskey Straight Out, thanks for tuning in all the way from Ireland. And George Savert and Cohen, thank you much for tuning in. And the Professor tuning in. I'm going to take a little wee sip. Hey, Jimmy Jazz, how you doing, man? Thanks for tuning in. You know, I love peated whiskey, but it's just part of the experience. You can kind of get burned out and ready to move on anything like pizza. Like, love pizza, love filet mignon, but how many times a week can you eat pizza? How often can you eat filet mignon? You're like, okay, I'm ready to eat. I need a salad or something, you know? Got to eat something else. So as much as I enjoy these sort of long, intense, Stephen Crabtree, thank you much for tuning in. As much as I love and learn a lot from these intensive, long periods of focusing on a particular region or a particular style of whiskey, eventually I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do something different. All right, so I'm going to cover just a few things that I personally have learned. If there's something else that you've picked up from watching my videos, I would really appreciate it. I got a compliment the other day that was probably one of the best compliments I ever had. He said, and I'm trying to remember who it was. I should have wrote it down. He said, he's speaking to me, you explain complicated things in yet such a way that doesn't make anybody feel stupid. Or no, that I'm not talking down to anybody. That's my goal, to take what I learn and study and pass it on to everybody in such a way that everybody can understand it and everybody gains from it without everybody starts, you know, square one. Everybody starts from the beginning from somewhere. I've been into wine for over 20 years, only been into whiskey for 5 years. So everybody starts at some time, but I have doubled down and studied a lot, traveled a lot, and learned about whiskeys. But you always want to communicate in such a way that the average person can understand it. And if you can't explain it that way, maybe you don't know it so well yourself. Quinn says, Redbreast cast strength here for $59.99 today, batch 8219. Had to buy it. Hey, this is Irish Whiskey Month. In fact, Bill, the Whiskey Dictionary, is going live at the end of this live stream. He is going live, and he's doing a whole month of Irish. I just did 4 months on Irish whiskey. Hey, Bill, in fact, I just mentioned him. That's funny. I just mentioned Bill. There he is. You mentioned the devil's name. He shows up. So Bill's going to be going live, and he's doing a whole series on Irish whiskey. He just reviewed the Blue Spot on his channel. I haven't had that one. Very curious. So I can see if I can get myself a bottle of that. So anyway, all right. So I'm going to cover some of the things that I have learned during this whiskey semester, as I like to call it. The first is there are more peated whiskeys being made in the Highlands than previously realized. Now, of course, traditionally, 100 plus years ago or so, just about all whiskeys in the Highlands would have had some peat. It wasn't until the introduction really of Coke, not Coca-Cola or that kind of Coke. It's a coal derivative, which doesn't put out as much smoke and all that as peat. It wasn't until that was really developed that you started seeing non-peated whiskey. So I've heard a couple of whiskey tubers say, there are a handful of distilleries in the Highlands that also do peated whiskeys. It's not true. In fact, I first started to realize there were more peated whiskeys in the Highlands when I went there, visiting distilleries such as Glenmorangie. They had a distillery-only available edition where you would see whiskeys that maybe they're not distributed, and definitely the Highlands and Speyside have not developed themselves a reputation. It's not what they're known for. When people think peated, they think Islay or maybe perhaps Orkney in terms of, Highland Park, which technically is part of the Highlands. But it's Islay has really branded themselves, gained the reputation of being peated, of producing peated whiskey. So that's what you think of. But if I reviewed 23 peated whiskeys from different distilleries, actually 2 are from Talisker and 2 are from Tamantal. So I got two of them because the Peaty Ting is from Tamantal, and then I had did 2 different Taliskers. Anyway, but if there's that many peated whiskeys from the Highlands, and there are more out there than what I could get my hands on that are maybe more immediately available, then there's a lot more Highland peated whiskeys than what we previously thought. Whiskey Straight Out says, I picked up a couple of the RC's Irish whiskey expressions. I'm not familiar with them. The entry level was surprisingly good, and the 10-year-old port cast finish is amazing. Cool. So if you guys don't know Whiskey Straight Out, he also is a whiskey tuber. You used to be able to click on 3 dots off to the side of someone's comments, and that would bring up their channel, but YouTube changed it, so you can't do it anymore. So if you guys haven't checked out Whiskey Straight Out, check him out. In fact, I had him as a guest on my show back when I was doing Irish whiskeys. So that's the first thing. There's more peated whiskey come out of the Highlands than previously conceived. But you can understand why someone might think, well, there's only a handful. Because if you look online or if you look in a local whiskey shop, really how many peated whiskeys from the Highlands do you really see? You don't really see that many. So you can understand why the reputations are there, but they are. But what I've really learned is the perception isn't quite accurate. There's a lot more than previously understood. Let me take a little sip, and we'll get into point number 2 that I learned during this time. Yummy, yummy. Number 2, I got the letters. I got to look over it. Number 2, Highland peat versus Islay peat is near impossible to distinguish. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but near impossible to distinguish. 2 reasons. 1, many Highland distilleries use Islay peated barley without revealing it. 2nd, distillation cuts and aging greatly affect the impact of peat and the parts per million. So this actually sort of, and I kind of mentioned this before, I think probably one of the big things we want, and we'd like to see more of, is transparency in the business, right? And Ralphie harps on this. We all do. I understand you can't put everything there is to say. I got a bottle over here. You can't put everything there is to say. Whoa. I just killed a spider. There was a... Sorry. There was a... I turned around to grab a bottle, and there's a spider going down the side of my whiskey thing. I think I killed him. Anyway, you saw it here live. I killed a spider. Whoa. Had to get him before you. Okay. Sorry for the distraction. So here's a Lagavulin. This is a cask strength bottle that I picked up from the distillery. Yeah, Little Miss Muffet. Yeah, a little whiskey, little son of a bitch. I think I killed him though. Hopefully he doesn't bite me. All right. Stuart Walker, thank you much for tuning in. So, I mean, how much information can you really put, right, on a label and still be readable, right? Because even the print on this is super, super small. This is from Lagavulin. You should have offered him a drink. Hey, Spider, you want a drink? Yeah, no. And he was a good size. He was about this big, and I don't know what kind he was, but anyway, I love even more now for that spider kill. There you go. Well, I don't want the son of a bitch to bite me, or hey, the son of a bitch was drinking my whiskey. Keep me out of my whiskey. There's only so much information you can fit on a label, but at least put it on the website. And some of these distilleries, they don't even tell you what cask they're using. So then you have to go to like secondary or third sources, which is like blogs and websites. Whiskey Base is a pretty good source, but it's sort of like Wikipedia, people inputting information. If you're not familiar with Whiskey Base, check them out, whiskey-base.com. And you could look up just about any bottle. There's probably like 4 or 5 references to it, and people giving individual scores and so forth. It's sort of a collective of whiskey information. So sometimes people can provide information in there. However, there are times, for example, the Glen, what was it? The Glen, I think it was the Glen Rothes. The Glen Rothes peated. No, it wasn't the Glen Rothes. Now I'm forgetting. Anyway, sometimes the information that have in those blogs are not accurate. And I showed a video where the master distiller said they had a little bit of sherry cask in it. Or was it anyway, we want more information. And one of the things, so at the very beginning, before I even started, probably like about 6 weeks before I started the semester, I started sending out emails to all the distilleries that I was going to be reviewing whiskeys. Hello, my name's Erik Wait. Got about 10,000 subscribers. I'm not asking them to give me anything. I don't want free bottles or any special favors. Just want information. Going to be reviewing your whiskey. I just want to know ppms and where is it from. 99.99% of them didn't even respond. Now, this is freaking. Hey, Michael Gonzalez, how you doing? Michael Hostler, how you doing? A lot of Michaels in this. This is just plain up stupid. Okay, you've got somebody with 10,000 subscribers who is essentially giving you free advertising for your product. How much is it going to hurt you to just provide a little bit of information? PPMs, and it's not like some secret information about the business, right? A little bit of information about the ppms and where the barley is coming from, right? Whether it's coming from Isla or it's coming from Highland. What the hell, man? I mean, is it really that tough? If someone's going to essentially throw your business, it costs to put a full page ad in a magazine that you might get 10,000 people looking at it. It's going to cost you about $5,000. When we whiskey tubers, let's say the larger channels, 10, 15, 20, 30, or Bill, it's got 50,000 plus subscribers. When we talk about a whiskey in a positive light, that is giving that producer thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars of free advertising. And most of them don't give a shit. I never use the viewership as a means to get free goodies. I'm not into that. But they can at least give me information. All right. Craig, thank you very much for tuning in. He says, Erik, I love your work. Solange. You know what? There's a feature on this I don't use because I'm actually using the chat from YouTube rather than StreamYard, but I can pull up people's names. Howard Foster says, you and Rafi should do a live link up. Rafi was on Whiskey in the Six. By the way, Whiskey in the Six and Sipper Social Club are also going live tonight. They're doing a blind shootout. So there's 2 other channels going live after this. I don't know if it would work with Ralphie and I. More because of personalities and nothing else. I've had people compare me with Ralphie, and it's a huge compliment, but I'm not worthy, to tell you the truth, seriously. Yeah. Whiskey House says, forgive the language, bastards. You're giving them free publicity plus likes, shares, etc. Exactly. So information. All I want is information. That I don't want special treatment. I don't want any free goodies. Just want a little bit of free information. Michael Bennett says you owe Craig a Glencairn clink. Did someone give me a super? Oh, sorry about that. You know what? You're absolutely right. I need another Glencairn to clink with. Sorry, I missed that. Thank you very much. Teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets its, and every time a Glencairn rings, an angel gets its wings. Hey, and Rob, my man, I was just talking about you, Rob. Thanks. He's giving me $13.99 in Canadian. One for Rob. A little bit too clunky. Anyway, every time a Glencairn rings, an angel gets its wings. Thanks, Rob. So Rob, Whiskey and the Six are also going live, and they're doing some blind shootouts. Really looking forward to seeing how they do. So because Bill's going live and they are going live, if you can't watch them both live at the same time, watch one live and watch the other one on the replay, but watch them both. I'm really interested to see what both of them are doing. Bill and doing Irish, and I love shootouts. So watch them both, either on the replay or live. All right, so what's the next thing I learned? It's funny, I wasn't expecting Rob to be tuning in. One of these days, Rob, you and I hope to make my way up to Canada one of these days and be able to hang out. All right, what's the next thing I learned? So there's more peated whiskey in the Highlands than I previously thought. It's very difficult, if not near impossible, to distinguish between Islay and Highland peated whiskeys, because a lot of the Highland distilleries are using peat from the island, and the distillation process changes it. Here's part number 3. There's 3 different ways in which peated whiskeys can become peated. The first is, and this is the traditional, is drying barley with smoldering peat, right? However, it's not as effective as doing it the second way, which is exposing wet barley to smoldering peat, then air drying. So this is really the most common. And the third is aging spirit in a cask which previously held peated whiskey. The Glenlivet Nadura is an example of that. And the Glenrothes peated cask is another example of that. And the Dunaville's Irish whiskey, 3 Crowns peated, is an example of that. So again, nothing I learned here during the semester, the different ways in which whiskey can be peated. Now, of course, one of the main things is not just that this happens, but I noticed, and this is a generalization because I've only had 3 whiskeys that were aged in peated casks. I found one of the things I found in common with the peated cask, putting a spirit into a peated cask to get the peat out of a cask that previously had peated whiskey in it, and to derive out, is you tend to get more of the ash. In terms of the characteristics of a peated whiskey, you tend to get more of the ash than medicinal, iodine, oceanic, or any other characteristics, or chocolate, that kind of character. So, generally speaking, while a peated cask whiskey can be very, very good, very, very, very enjoyable, I prefer that they actually use actual peated barley. They actually use peated barley. Let's go. Number 4, multiple flavors of peat. And I think this is probably, I think a lot of people also have particular, go down here. Now you can see it down here underneath the lettering. People have certain generalizations, I think overly generalizations about what peated whiskeys are like. So I think there are multiple flavors that you can get from peat. So not all peat is the same. One is obviously the different variations of intensity of smoke. If you guys are familiar with No Nonsense Whiskey, I picked up from him. He describes, is it a campfire you just lit? Is it a campfire that's roaring? Is it a campfire that is starting to go out? Or is it a campfire that has gone out? Which is probably more of the ashy character. So I kind of like that variation in describing the intensity of smoke. B, sometimes you can just get just ash rather than smoke. C, the medicinal and iodine, that is probably more associated with, probably Lafroig and some of the more Islay whiskeys, but you can get a little bit in some of the Highland peated whiskeys, which I'm going to take a sip here. I kind of think that could be an indicator of where they're getting their peated barley from. And sometimes you can get some saltiness in there as well. Fourth, or D, savory and meaty. And those are probably some of my favorites. And I don't know why, but it seems oftentimes sherry cask, something about the interaction of a sherry cask with peat, I tend to get more of the savory and meaty. Not that it doesn't happen with bourbon cask, but I tend to get more of the savory and the meaty when peat is combined with sherry cask. E, vegetal, so that greener notes, I definitely get more of that, I would say, from Islay. And F, spice and pepper. So just to test you guys, hey, so I know you're paying attention, you've been watching. Name me a Highland peated single malt Scotch that you get a distinctive, that classic has a pepper note from the peat. Name it. Go ahead and see if you guys know. See if you guys paying attention. Name me a Highland peated single malt Scotch whiskey that classically, it has a reputation for having a pepper note from the peat. Let me see what you guys got here. Well, I take a sip. Scott Rance, no, Octomore is not Highland. We're talking about Highland single malt Scotch whiskey peated. Talisker, Mike Bennett. Ding, 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 ding. Right. Wow, there's someone in there by the name of HBK Trife. I don't know how to pronounce it, but yes, Talisker. Talisker, classic example of peat. So that's one of the examples of that you can get. So you can get some spice and pepper. So if you ever hear someone say peated, it's smoke and it's this and it's that and this, well, yes, but there's more. There's more to peat than just smoke, or medicinal or anything else like that. There's more to it than anything else like that. All right. Make sure I don't get late. Okay. Multiple flavors. All right. Now, we covered this a little bit last week, but one of the most important things we should all keep in mind that we learned last week, we covered just a little bit last week, so you don't forget, is who really invented whiskey. You guys remember? I revealed who were the true inventors of whiskey. Do you guys remember? If you remember from last week, if you're last week, who did it? Not people say the Irish, some people say the Scots. Who are the true inventors of whiskey? Let's see if you guys remember from last week. James says the Irish. Sky, Arabians, aliens. Paul Mensick. That's right. That's aliens. It was the aliens. And here is the proof. This here, right here in a photo is the proof that it's the aliens who invented whiskey. You can see right here, you have a mash tun here, two aliens making whiskey. Obviously, the mash tun was originally a crashed UFO. I believe it was on Orkney, a crashed UFO. And since they couldn't get off the planet, they actually used distilled malted barley as fuel for their spaceship. And so since they crashed on Orkney, they said, well, we need to make some fuel for our spaceship. So they made this mash tun from parts from their spaceship. And then they found out that the crazy earthlings like to drink their fuel and liked it even more if they put it into a cask. And so now you've heard it from here, the true story about who who invented whiskey. It's the aliens. There you go. You learned it right here. It's the Irish aliens. It's the aliens. All righty. I'm going to post a picture of that on for shits and giggles. On the Facebook page later on. By the way, after this, I'm going to post on. If you're not a member of my Facebook group, I've got probably around 550 people in my Facebook group. Facebook group allows me to, I can upload articles, I can put links to my videos, I can papers, whatever. So I will post after this live stream a listing in order in which I reviewed all the Highland peated single malt Scotch whiskey I reviewed, their point scores, and at the bottom will be links for the top 5. And after this video finishes, I will put a link down below in the description box. The top 5 of Highland peated single malt Scotch whiskeys, and I'll put links to those. So that'll be after this live stream. I'll add it to the description. I didn't want to put it ahead of time because I want to keep it a mystery until we go through. So, all right, there we go. So whiskey is alien spaceship fuel. Wow, that's right, Floyd. Floyd, you learned it right here, man. If anybody doesn't believe you, tell them to come talk to me. I'll show them the proof. I have proof. So whiskey is actually space fuel. There you go. All righty. So let's get into the top 5. Let's get into the top 5 now. Oh, before I do, I want to talk a little bit about scores. In describing whiskeys and talking about whiskeys, I think it's more important to pay attention to the attributes, aromas, and flavors of the whiskey. The light is coming through. The aliens. There's an alien spaceship. Sun's going down, so it comes through the window. It's more important to pay attention to the aromas and flavors, and does that sound like something you want to drink, than the actual point score, right? Point scores are ballpark figures. They're not exact. It's not a science. It's not like taking out a ruler or measuring tape or some sort of, Geiger counter and get an exact measurement. It's an evaluation. So when I was working on my master's degree, I had it in college too, but more in my master's degree, you would have. When I was in seminary, a lot of the topics overlapped. So you could sometimes actually use the same paper for this class with this class. Like you got an A on it. So that's a really good paper. But you know what? That paper will also work for this class. Different professor, different topic, and yet it kind of overlaps. So the paper would work for both classes. And you could get a teacher give you an A on the paper on this one and a B+ in this class. Same paper, different professors, slightly different grades. But it's not like someone gave you an A and they don't give you an F, right? Or someone gave you an A and someone gave you they don't give you a C. The grade would still be fairly close, right? But you would get a slightly different grade from 2 different professors for the exact same paper, right? All right. I think something parallel to that in which we give point scores for whiskeys. They're still ballpark. In fact, in preparing for this and doing my rating for 5 whiskeys, I actually slightly adjusted the score of one, which was the Glenlivet Nadura, and bumped up my number 5. My number 5 originally wasn't going to be number 5, but after reevaluating, one whiskey went down 2 points and one whiskey came up 2 points, and it became my number 5. Oh. Sweet, savory, salty, and peated. A little fruity. Really, very nice. This is my number 5. I'll tell you what it is in just a minute. Alrighty. It scores a reference point to likes and dislikes. Yes. But if I gave 95 points to a peated whiskey and you don't like peated whiskey, that 95 points doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean you should run out and buy it. If I give 95 points to a bourbon, you don't like bourbons. So pay more attention to the descriptors. I would say not only in terms of aromas and flavors, but in terms of like the way I do it is structure, finished, evolution, and all that. I think those are more important points. And then, of course, the price. We're always looking for the quality price ratio. All right. So I do want to talk a little bit about point scores. So, and I mentioned this before in another video. One of the big influences on me coming from the wine world was Robert Parker. Robert Parker was an attorney. He got into wine in the early 1960s while on his honeymoon in France. He was an attorney, and most of the wine industry, the wine reviewers, were actually in-house. So you weren't getting an outsider view of a wine. You were getting an insider, someone who actually had a self-interest in the trade of wine business and wines getting good scores. And that was true. So Robert Parker was like one of the first to sort of be on the outside. So he started a magazine which he accepted no payments, no free bottles, no advertising, none of that. And it was called the Whiskey Advocate. Then he used basically an American grading system that we use at schools to grade wines. Okay, so my system and my way of approaching things is pretty much based on Robert Parker. All right, so here is my point score. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. So basically 75 points and below means there's some serious flaws and it should be removed from the market. So if a whiskey was corked, and that doesn't necessarily mean that all the bottlings, it just means one particular batch. If I get a corked whiskey, I don't write off the whiskey. I just figure I probably got a bad bottle, and then I return it to get another one. 75 to 79 is mediocre in aromas, flavors, showing minor items. By the way, I'm starting from the bottom. I've had a couple like that. The worst I ever get was Glyph molecular whiskey. And then, the Connemara, I get a real low cask strength. It has had too much petrol notes to it. Good, 80 to 84 is good, but may be somewhat simple, lacking in structure and development. 85 to 89 is very good, but needs improvement in structure and development. And this is rule kicker for me. What it takes to give it a 90 points, excellent quality, aromas, flavors, and structure and development. And then 95 to 100 is superior quality in aromas, flavor, structure, and development. So one of the things that I wish everyone would do is when you give your score, it's say 88 points. Why did you give it 88? Why don't you go higher? Have you ever scored a whiskey 100 points? And this happens in the wine world as well. I wish people would explain why they give what they give and what would it take to give it more. So if I don't go above 90, I usually try to explain it, either because there's no development. It may be a bit simple. For example, I recently reviewed the Glenfiddich Fire and Ice. While I enjoyed it, it was very, very sweet, right? Sort of, it's like eating a bunch of candy. It didn't have a lot of development, didn't have a lot of complexity, didn't have a lot of depth. So I gave it an 87 points, and then I can still say, but I liked it, right? I wish more reviewers would explain why they give the scores that they do, and why they don't go higher or lower. All right, now scores are if you give me a whiskey that I gave 90 points and they give it to me blind, I should still be real close to 90 points. Give it to me blind. I might give it an 89. I might give it a 91, but I'm still close. I'm not going like 85, and I'm not going like 100. I should still be fairly close in my scores. Sun's going down now. You can see it's getting real dark here. Anyway, I should still be in the ballpark, and that's why in picking my number 5, which I'm drinking right now, you know what? I went back. A couple of them were like 90. One was like a 92. Went back, did a reevaluation, did it side by side, and go, you know what? On reevaluation, if we're only talking 2 points, I'm taking this one down 2 points and putting this one up 2 points. But 2 points is still very, very, very close. All righty. My biggest issue with the Fire and Cane, it's not a $57 whiskey. It's a $40 whiskey. And I had one person comment, said they could find it for $40 in their neighborhood. All righty. So we're at 35 minutes into the hour. And I think I'm timing because I want to wrap this up at the top of the hour. Let's go. All right. So Number 5, excuse me, allergy season. Things are blooming. I head to work. I leave for work and I'm fine, but I'm passing all these trees and they are blooming the trees, the red and the pinks and the whites and all that. Real pretty. But by the time I get to work, my eyes are watering and my nose is running, so allergies are kicking in. Now, I'm not sure how well the slides are going to show up, but out of the 20 some odd whiskeys that I reviewed, coming in at number 5 and is in my glass is, which I have right here, the Balvenie, the Week of Peat, 14-year-old. Just see if I can read my notes here. Oh, you know what? All right. So, ex-bourbon cask, non-chill filtered, natural color, 48.3% alcohol by volume, 92 points. This is the one that came up. So it was originally 90 points. I brought it up 2 points, and it goes for about $100. I like the sweetness. It has a sweet, savory. It has a smoke. Has a little bit of salty there. So for me, and again, this is more subjective, I like sweet, savory, salty, sherried, and smoky. I would like to have this a sherried version. Spend a little time in a sherry cask. This is bourbon cask. Of course, some people may not be all that big on sherry cask, which is fine, which is more subjective than objective, but absolutely fantastic whiskey, $100. Price-wise, I think it's pretty much spot on. If you can get it for under $100, you got a real deal. Absolutely fantastic whiskey, and that's actually what is in my glass right now. But this is the Week of Peat. There's another one that they had previously, which was Peat Week, which is also a 14-year-old. I've not had Peat Week. I think Scott and Bart have reviewed that one. In fact, they've reviewed them, I think, side by side over at Scotch Test Dummies. If I can find a bottle just for shits and giggles, I'll probably pick one up just so I can do a comparison between the two. Really, really, really like this whiskey. Absolutely fantastic. If you can get a bottle, potentially unchill filtered, and yeah, it's unchill filtered and a natural color, which is the way I like it. Some people prefer a bourbon cask. They think there's more of a purity of it. That sherry sometimes masks a little bit. Also, and we'll be doing a sherry semester coming up shortly. Sherry doesn't go through the char. It doesn't have. Bourbon casks are charred, right? Here in the United States, that little bit of a char on the oak, it acts as a filter to filter out unwanted flavors. A sherry cask, particularly sulfur, a sherry cask doesn't have that. And if they charred it, they would be getting rid of all the sherry characteristics. So one of the things people don't like about some sherry casks is that sulfur note. And the reason why it's there is because it doesn't go through it doesn't have that char layer in the cask that helps filter like a bourbon cask does. Hey, Tamar, how you doing, man? He said, get a bottle of that 1920 Blandy Madeira. He mentioned that previously. It will last you many, many, many years. I might already have one, but not the 1920. I do have some Madeiras. Eventually, I'm going to do a class on port cask and other fortified wine casks. All right, let's move on. So that was number 5. All right, coming in at number 4, and this is actually one I love this whiskey. Coming at number 4 is the Benryak 10-year-old Curiositas, ex-bourbon, ex-Oloroso sherry cask. So we got the sherry cask that I like. 46% alcohol by volume. I gave this 92 points, $75 to $90. So the Peat Week, or it was Week. Now I get to see. They shouldn't have the name so close. Week of Peat 92 points. This one, I give 92 points, but I like sherry a little bit more. I like that little sherry note there. Also, look at the price. Potentially a more affordable. I think it has a little bit more richness, a little bit more depth in the development of it. I really, 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 really love this whiskey. Absolutely fantastic. I think they're not calling it the Curiositas, and I think I've heard that it's now might be a 12-year-old rather than a 10-year-old, but everything else about the whiskey seems to be the same. I'm going to keep my eyes out open for it, because if I can find it, I'll get one, because I have a feeling this bottle is going to disappear pretty quickly. Tamar says the Peat Week bottles are better than the Week of Peat. It's funny because I think Scott and Bart said the opposite, if I recall correctly. Anyway, really like this Benryak, and in fact, I'm actually drinking out of a Benryak glass. Benryak glass. I got this at the Glasgow airport in my last trip to Scotland. As I was going through checking out the duty free, someone at the he was actually a representative for Benryak. He was in the duty free, giving little tastings of whiskeys, and he recognized me. And he said, "Aren't you Erik Wait?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I'm watching your series on the history of Scotch whiskey." Really surprised. Here I am on the outside of the country in Scotland at the duty free. And this guy recognized me. He's watching my video. So was really, anyway, so he was really cool. Gave me some free tastings, and he gave me this glass. I gave him one of my coins, and then he gave me this glass to take home. So if you ever watching, dude, I don't remember what his name was. Slanjiva. There's a little bit of chocolate on the back end of this, and you get just that like hint of mint that cut it sort of York spearmint patty on the back end. Really nice. It is really weird to be out in public and be recognized for something you do on YouTube. Usually it's happened at airports. It happened in San Francisco. It happened in Texas. Happened in Colorado, and happened in Glasgow. It happened in a parking garage in San Francisco. So a parking garage, there's a lot of echo because I was like not on top but down below, and it's kind of dark, and so you hear this. "Are you Erik Wait?" As if it was a woman's voice. I was like, you don't see the person, you just hear the echo. And I'm like, "Yeah. Oh, I watch your videos on YouTube." That was a little weird. That was a little weird. Stuart Walker says, "Loving this. Got a week in Scotland coming soon." Oh, cool. With my boy Stevie B, visiting distilleries, Westside, Tobermory, Isla. Awesome. Oban. Cheers, dude. I haven't been to Ardno because it wasn't open yet, but I've been to the other distilleries. I've been to Oban. I haven't been to Tobermory. I haven't been to Westside. But hey, hope you have a fantastic trip. I don't think I'll be able to get to Scotland this year, but 2022. I'm going to go back to Ireland. I'm going to go to Ireland. I'm going to do my third trip to Scotland, Lord willing. I'm hoping to go back to Texas towards the end of this year. Anyway. All right. So that was number 4. Coming in at number 3. Ooh, this one is I like this whiskey. Coming in at number 3 is Talisker, the Distiller's Edition Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. This is a little bit sweeter, double matured in Amaro cask. So Amaro, it's an Oloroso whiskey with added PX in it, Pedro Jimenez. So that's why it's a little bit sweeter. And most people never heard of Amaro. It's really not a type of sherry, but it's really just a different designation for an Oloroso that has PX added to it as a sweetener. So anyway, 45.8% alcohol by volume, very respectable ABV, 92 points, again, around $100. Of course, prices are always going to vary depending on where you live. Love this whiskey. I love the richness. I love the sweetness. I love the evolution. It's a little on the sweeter side. It does have some savory notes to it, But if you're in the mood for something not sweet and dry, like the Balvenie, then having that little bit of sweetness may be a little bit too much for you at the moment. It depends on what you're in the mood for. But I really, really love this. I think this would be an excellent whiskey for Valentine's Day. So there's some debate. So Amore could be from, Amoroso could be from love, or it could be from Amara in Italian, which means which is a bitter. So some say, anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. Not going to get into it. I'm going to say it's probably from Amore for love, and that's why they would use it. But it's a better story. It's a better story. Anyway, absolutely superb whiskey. And for $100, I think it's a really, really good buy. And I know whiskeys are expensive and stuff, but a really, really good buy. There are so many whiskeys out there for far more, $125, $150, $200, that I would prefer this over those. And absolutely spectacular whiskey. So the only area in Scotland I haven't been to is sort of the northwestern region of Scotland. I wish I had a map here. So if this is Scotland, so this would be, so over here would be Glasgow. Edinburgh would be over here. Over here would be the Isle of Arran. So you go up here to Speyside, you go up here to Highlands, and up here would be Orkney. Well, over here would be the Hebrides, the Islands, Isle of Skye, and all that. That's the only place I haven't been to. Distilleries are a little more spread out. They're not as compact versus, say the Speyside, we got almost 50 distilleries there. But it's the one area I haven't been to. And there's a YouTuber, his name is Keith, I think. It's called the Urban Explorer, and he has a van channel. Anyways, he's done some great videos of traveling around up there. It just makes me want to go up there. So I'm almost thinking, rather than stay at hotels or castles like I did before, see if you can rent a motorhome and just camp out there in the wild in a motorhome up in the islands. So, but we'll see how it goes when I get there. But anyway, take another sip. Yeah, I would like to visit Tobermory. The Tobermory's up in that area as well. Visit Talisker, visit Skye Distillery, Ratsay, of course, is up there. Really, really nice. My next whiskey, or next number, is number 4 out of 5. Speaking of Talisker, the next one is, I'm just want to click on the right one. Don't click on the wrong one. Where are we at? Did I forget to upload the spot? No, that one 4 from Benryak. Nope. 4. Oops. You know what? I think I forgot to upload it. Talisker 10. No. Oh, son of a gun. Anyway, I didn't upload the slide. Or I think I downloaded it because I needed to make corrections to it. Or is this it? No, there we go. Okay, sorry. Here it is. The Talisker 18-year-old. And I'm going to pour myself, actually, get a fresh glass, pour myself a little bit of this one. Talisker 18-year-old single malt Scotch, ex-bourbon cask, 45.8% alcohol by volume. I gave this 94 points. But here's the kicker. It's $170. And my biggest challenge with this one was recommending it for the average consumer. Is it worth $170? To tell you the truth, quality price ratio, I would go with the Distiller's Edition, right? We're only talking 2 points difference. I like the richness and sweetness of the Talisker Edition, but in terms of an elegant whiskey with precision, depth of flavor, layers, from a technical side of view, in terms of, a whiskey aficionados, I had to give it to the 18-year-old. But the price is painful. That's a big ouch. So I had a little bit of a challenge with that one only because of the price. But again, if you're paying $200 plus for prices from secondary markets, from a whole lot of other whiskeys out there, this in terms of the quality and the class it's in, it's a better buy than a lot of other whiskeys out there. Absolutely spectacular, spectacular whiskey. I'm Smart says he thinks he paid 180. Ooh, butterscotch. Apologies for being late. No apologies, Taylor. You're not late to church or late to the job. And of course, you can always watch it on the replay. Wow. Butterscotch. You get still got that very distinctive pepper note. Tamar says, so the 18 is like a parfait or an onion. Sounds interesting. Or an onion. No, there's no onion in there. I'm talking about onion. Oh, man. And this is where Mike Bennett says $135 in New Hampshire. See, there you go. See, if you can get for under $140, under $150, you're getting closer to, and it sounds like called, a bottle or something, a luxury, a bargain, but it's really, really good. Spencer Mav, how you doing? Yeah, so I'm doing my countdown for 5 for the Highland Peated. A moment of silence. This is a whiskey that's elegance and finesse, layers of flavor, and depth. And it makes you stop and think. There are some whiskeys, you enjoy them, they taste good, and you have a jolly good time drinking them, hanging out, da-da-da-da. And then there's some whiskeys, they just they cause you to focus on the whiskey. So these are not whiskeys you watch television with necessarily. They're whiskeys that you sit. Maybe you read a book. You're reading a book. You have the whiskey out to the side. You stop. You finish a page or paragraph. You grab, smell, taste. For that moment, you forget the book, right? Or maybe if you're watching a movie, you pause it. With the remote, you pause the movie. And for that moment, you focus on the whiskey. Its development, its elegance, its finesse, the layers of flavor, the just whiff of smoke with a hint of spice, the caramel, butterscotch, vanilla, sort of like almost, and I'm not getting like a creme brulee, like the top part of a creme brulee. Apples and pears, really, really an absolutely superb dram. Really, really fantastic. All righty. So that is my number 2. We now come down to my number 1. And this is the whiskey that's going to piss some people off because people always getting these complaints and stuff. But, like my top 10 for 2020 or whatever. Oh, I can't get that one, whatever. Guess what? There's a lot of whiskeys in the market that you never get your hands on. That's just the way it goes. Particularly there are whiskeys that I was bringing back from Scotland. All right, let's take that one off. My number 1 whiskey for the year, and I have to give a big, again, howdy, and thank you very much to the Scotch for Dummies, particularly Mark, is the Balvenie 12-year-old Burgundy cask. Now, this is currently sold out. So even the store no longer doesn't have it. However, the importance of, and the stress I made is, this tells you that Balvenie, which is the peated version of an Edredauer, if you see something that's 10 years or 12 years or whatever, it's a Burgundy cask and peated, you probably want to buy it because I'm sure this is not a unicorn. This is not something rare. There are other bottlings, 10, 12 years old, of Burgundy cask whiskeys. So this was a store select from Vine and Table. They are sold out. I gave it 95 points. I've actually got 2 bottles of this. I paid $135. It's non-chill filtered, natural color, 57.5% alcohol by volume. Keith over at shoot, now I can't remember the name of the channel. I remember his name, but I can't remember the channel. I'm not the only one. Someone else reviewed this as well. Keith over at I'm sorry. Now I feel bad that I can't remember the name of his channel. I've even had him on the show. So I'm not the only person who's raved about this, but absolutely superb whiskey. Yeah, the color on this is fantastic. I mean, look at that. Holy cow. You can barely get some light through. It is super dark. Super, super, super dark. An absolute superb whiskey. And I was smart enough that I got 2 of these whiskeys. I got 2 of them. So once this one's gone, I still got another one, which is cool. All right, let me take this one off. All righty. So this is wrapping up. Again, I'll post links to the original reviews for all these 5 whiskeys. I'll post a list of my point scores for all the whiskeys I reviewed during the semester on the Facebook group. If you don't have a Facebook account, I'm sorry. That's the only way I can get documents out until I get a website built. So if you can find me on this Erik Wait Whiskey Studies on Facebook, there's 3 questions you need to answer in order to join the group. There's standard questions. I'll add you to the group, and then you'll be able to download stuff. And there's actually a file section where I posted previous stuff for previous wine studies and so forth. So this is wrapping up whiskey, the Peated Highland Peated Single Malt Scotch Whiskey semester. I have a special review that will be coming out next week, right? You could probably guess what it is. If you want to guess what it's a whiskey that comes out once a year around this time of year. I'll be reviewing it next week. 5 o'clock next week, we will have another live stream. I'll be a live stream. I'll probably be talking about that producer. It's one of my favorite producers. I don't know if you can guess what it might be and what whiskey it might be. Beg. But anyway, that's what I'll be reviewing next week. And I'll probably do something special next Friday for that. After that, I need to take a couple weeks off for several different reasons. One, it's good just to take a break from alcohol. I'll still be posting some shorts, but I'll be posting shorts that are like flashcards for studying for an exam. So I need to take a couple weeks break. It's good to take a break every once in a while. I'll still be posting shorts, but they'll be like for studying. I'm having some dental work done. If you have a temporary in your mouth, this happened when I was actually studying to become a sommelier. It screws up your palate. So until I get the regular, the crown, I'm pretty screwed. So for a couple of weeks, my palate's going to be screwed for doing whiskey. So I'm taking 2 weeks off of that. Might as well use the time for taking a break from whiskey, from any alcohol period, just for health's sake or mental sake, whatever else. And I need the time for studying. I'm currently working on a practice exam for a test I'll be taking in April on whiskey. I will post that practice exam when I'm done with it, plus the answers. It'll cover history of Scotch whiskey and production, and that'll be posted. So as soon as I get that done, which will probably be over the next couple of weeks, I'll be posting that as well. So I'm glad you guys liked the short. It was very experimental. From a creative standpoint, you have to think differently. You have to be able to communicate concisely in 60 seconds. I think people like it because it's just a quick, how do you do? And then you have to learn how to do things vertically and so forth. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great learning experience. I've enjoyed it. I think people seem to like them. So, alrighty. So I'm going to wrap this up again. 2 live streams kicking on in about 2 minutes. Bill, the Whiskey Dictionary, he's doing an Irish month. And Rob Whiskey in the Six and Social Sipper Club are doing a blind shootout. So check both of them out, at least one of them live and perhaps one on the replay. I will probably watch one tonight, and then I'll watch the other one tomorrow while I'm studying stuff. I like long formats for when I'm studying, writing notes or doing anything like that. So again, I want to thank you very much for tuning in. This has been an absolutely fantastic study experience. If you have learned something, if there's something you've benefited from, I would enjoy hearing from it, because I like knowing that it's not just for me, that you guys benefit from it as well, from all the work that I put into this. All righty. So again, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And until next time, Slanjiva.